sometimes people are eating for reasons outside of what you mentioned. Like, I know for me, like I will occasionally, if I'm really stressed, and this is also there's science on this as well based on stress. But if I'm really stressed, like I will see junk meal as like a reward for my hard
Mm.
work, and like when really it's actually punishing my body, ironically. So do you have the psychological side that you have to handle as well, or is that rather because you're dealing with high performers, they just take care of it themselves?
No, they definitely don't. That's psychological. um, it's amazing when they come here. They're like, "Okay, just tell me what I have to do, and I'll do it." And it's a very, very fluid conversation with us. So, um, yes, absolutely not. What happens with my program and the work that I do, a lot of it is embedded into mindful eating, and mindful eating is eating with intention and attention to your food. And with
Mm,
that comes a myriad of self-awareness that they need to develop, right? A myriad. It's not even, oh, I know what I'm eating. Great, I'll eat it. It's pacing yourself. It's chewing. It's smelling your food. It's tasting your food. It is understanding why you're triggered to eat that food. So a lot of the work that we do
yeah.
initially, and this is just foundational work with what I do. This can go on for the remaining few sessions that they have, or it can go on. I have clients that see me for 2 or 3 years, and it's still something that we have to cover. So, but it's very, very normal, and we normalize it because it bringing awareness to that behavior, such as stress eating or emotional eating, doesn't give it any power anymore. And so once we bring awareness to that behavior, then we can work to chip it away and I like to say divorce the relationship between food and emotion, to a
Mm,
degree, especially a negative emotion. And so with that, I talk very openly and candidly around self-empowerment and self-sabotage when it comes to food. And it's your choice. At the end of the day, you choose. So that reward for Macca's, as you were saying, may feel like you are empowering yourself, but I think you're self-sabotaging. And part of you may be self-sabotaging because of feelings of self-worth or lack thereof, or because you've had a tough day and you feel you deserve it, and something's triggered you to want to
mm,
eat something that is sort of um, instant gratification. But there's a part of you
mm,
that still knows that that's sabotage. So we sort of work through a lot of that stuff as well psychologically. Yeah.
I remember about I think it was about a year ago, year and a half ago. It was actually no, it was a year ago. And I was doing the business that I'm in at the moment, and I was again working really long hours, and I was rushing my food all the time, and I wasn't aware of the science around eating fast. And I'm massively paraphrasing here, but when you don't chew your foods, the peptides don't get properly broken down,
Mm,
and it sits on the side of your gut lining. It chews away your gut lining, and it can lead to leaky gut and various
mm,
things like that. On top of that, when you're stressed and you eat, and then hold these leads to other host of problems of your body's pulling the resources away from the gut and other organs to prioritize the blood flow to the limbs of your body because it's in
mm.
flight or fight. So I was eating, and I was just like, I was finishing like a whole meal within the space of 5 minutes, 6 minutes, like just eating, moving
Oh,
forward.
oh
I know,
dear.
I know. And I had a friend at the time who's like, he told me, he's like, when you eat foods, you don't properly digest the peptides, then sit on the side of your body and then of your gut lining. It then creates, it's, I'm using metaphors here. This is not the literal science, but it creates cracks in the gut lining. And then you have whole food molecules going to your blood, which then triggers an autoimmune response. Hence the, spin outs and like, lightheadedness and sleep issues and various things.
Mm.
So that night when we went and ate, I ate with him, and he eats so slow, like so slow to the point where his food's going cold. Then he stops
Yeah.
between his,
Mm.
he's stopping between he eats.
I
You're the
love that.
same? Yeah.
Exactly. My family clean up around me and I'm still eating. And
He would sit there and he would then pause an additional 5 minutes and just like meditate while he's eating the food. And I'm
that's
like, what?
unreal.
Uh, he's really good. Like he was really good at it. And so I did the same thing. And I had a meal. Every single meal that I ate up until that point, for the last 2 or 3 years prior to that, was followed by like spin outs or like feeling fatigued and yeah, like
Wow.
really, really bad. And so then I would sit there and I ate the meal. I slowed down. I just I'm like, this is torture. I'm like idiot, chewing it for like 30, 40 times, then
Mm-hmm.
like pausing, putting my knife and fork down. He's there sitting like in some like Zen state, like I'm doing the same thing. And I've been meditating for a long time, but food is not the best relationship that I have with food. And then after the food, right, I felt similar symptoms like start to come on, then go away. Like it was as opposed to like boom, it's here. The symptoms will
Wow.
come on and go
Yep.
away just from slowing down, chewing.
Yep.
So I can certainly attest to that emotional side. And I think a lot of people, if we're looking at it, realistically, how we are supposed to eat, as far as supposed to, meaning generally speaking, as a human, versus how we eat right now with our phones hunched over, like with the food in front of us, is
Yep.
completely wrong. And
Yes.
we're devoid of nature. So I imagine you see that all the time, especially with corporate people, right?
It's actually one of the biggest things we work on. So that no distraction, I do challenge them. They are set homework with me. So after a session on mindful eating, one of their pieces of homework is to actually choose one meal a day at least where they are not distracted or in front of a screen. Aside from the obvious fact that you're not paying attention to what you eat when you're in front of a screen, there are studies to show that what you eat, how much you eat, how fast you eat is also triggered by what you may be reading. So, for a lot of corporates or executives or entrepreneurs, if you're reading an email that's quite stressful, or you've seen something quite stressful, your natural reaction is to find a reward for that, or a procrastination technique, and it's typically food. So, it could be, chocky, could be lollies, could be a drink
Chucky.
for some, so that's definitely something that we work on initially, which is breaking the habit of grabbing something or eating in front of a screen. Absolutely.
So,
And chewing
so
slowly.
awesome. And so for those listening, if they want to do it themselves, what would be the best way to approach that? Like, what does one do? You said one meal to begin with. Is there
Yeah.
like a psychological hack? Because I know people might have issues with and this is probably why you work with executives, because they're more willing to do it, but people have a hard time pushing through on habits because there's emotional stuff there. Is there like a way to see it that's more appealing, maybe?
Absolutely. It's funny. Look, I love to say that the executives are reward driven and very good at results based behaviors, but not always. And they're humans,
Right.
right? So they have a lot of, and that's even more difficult in that demographic. In that if they have a resistance to something, they're pretty strong at saying no. So one of the
Disagreeable.
ways, yeah, yes, yeah, absolutely. So that agreeableness, right, that trait isn't always there because some of them feel very challenged by a new behavior. And so there's a couple of things that we do. One of them is one meal a day doesn't necessarily similar to atomic habits, make it obvious and easy, right? For example, which is if the one meal that you know that you can have one in the day is going to be breakfast, where you're not distracted or in front of a screen, start off with breakfast. For many people, breakfast is the easiest because it's the first meal they have. They're usually with their family or at home getting ready for work or whatnot. And not a lot of people, although my demographic, a little bit aside to that, are always in front of the screen for breakfast. But typically, it's the one meal that, and it's the first thing in the morning in terms of your eating, and so it's easier to manage. When you get later on in the day, it becomes more exhausting. It's harder to actually follow through with that. And then once they've mastered that, after about, I would say 7 days, then make it 2 meals that day. And this is where it becomes a little bit hairy because I have a lot of resistance, especially from execs who are, but it's urgent. I have to be answering that email. I have to be on my laptop. I have to check those emails. If I tell you you are only allowed 20 minutes a day to eat and then a timer goes off, I'm sure you can find 20 minutes to just sit and eat by yourself. So that's part of, an addition to some of those exercises that we do. And then I think those meals aren't the meals and the distractions aren't really the challenge for this group and potentially most humans. I think the bigger challenge is what you were saying earlier, which is chewing. And
Mm.
so once we focus on chewing, which I think is one of the best things to actually focus on, it's not so much just distraction free. It's actually that chewing at least 6 to 10, and then you can go up to 40, which typically you actually have to be doing 40, but I get them to about 6 to 10. And then by the time they know it, the 20 minutes is up and they haven't looked at a thing because they're concentrating so hard on having to chew that mouthful.
Mm.
And so we put those challenges in place as well. And it's really interesting to see that, not only do they start to enjoy their food, but their nervous system, the fight or flight response diminishes. It starts to rest a little because they're not always feeling on the go. They're feeling a little bit more relaxed.
Thanks for watching this clip of the Getting Mental podcast. If you like this clip, check out the full episode here or more clips here.